The 8-bar solo you just heard is going to be used in this video to illustrate the use of inflection and phrasing to make your leads, melodies, and solos much more interesting. Let's check it out. One terrific way of adding interest and excitement to your solos is to take some of the basic melodies you might be playing, or just basic phrases, and adding little inflections to some of the notes along the way can make a big impact on how things come across. I'll give an example. The very first lick of the solo you just heard, believe it or not, was just a minor pentatonic scale descending. But when you play it this way, you would never know it. It really doesn't sound as basic as... Now, I threw a lot of inflections on that first lick, more than I normally would, but just to illustrate the point, when you listen to this, it really doesn't come across like a normal pentatonic minor scale, which is usually, for guitar players, extremely easy to identify just by listening. But here's how I did it. I took the G, so we're in the key of E minor here, I took the G, the high note, and I approached it from a pre-bend and release from F sharp. Then I played E. So instead of just going, I went right away. Even if that lick was just two notes, it's already twice as interesting as it was without the bend. So that's how I do the first two notes. Then I just outright played D. For the B, I bent into it from a half step below. So I bent B flat to B. So now we've got... So again, if you just play them, pretty boring sounding, right? Add those little inflections, and all of a sudden, it almost sounds like a slide lick, which is kind of cool. From there, to play the A, I actually decided to just slide up to A. So I started around the 11th, 12th fret area, and I just get to A. To get to G, the next note, I kind of approached it the same way I did the B. I bent into it from a half step below. So now you got... I got one note left, and we're going to play it twice, and we're going to do it this way. It's E, and what I did is I slid down to E. So within this one lick, I've already demonstrated how you can use slides that go up to a note. Extremely common. Most players probably do that. You can also slide down to notes. Players like Steve Vai, Marty Friedman are well known for doing those kind of phrasing nuances. And then I decided, instead of just playing E twice, I would slide down to it and then chase it by bending up to it from a half step below. So what might be interesting to some players is that when I'm doing these little bends, only one of them, that first one, the note I'm starting from is in key. This is an F sharp, and in the key of E minor, F is the only sharp in that key. So this is what I would call a legal note to bend to, or bend from. B flat is not, it's the flat 5. But because we don't dwell on it, you don't get that awkward feeling of it being a wrong note. There's F sharp again. D sharp is technically considered outside of the key. It's the raised 7th, whereas the key of E minor typically has just a D natural. But regardless, when you get out of it that quickly, you get the general effect of, ooh, something cool just happened, without the residual awkwardness of holding onto that note. So there's lick number 1. And then what I do to round out this bar is a little lick that outlines A minor. So in this song, in this chord progression, I'm going from E minor to an A minor. Again, very simple progression, totally diatonic to the key of E minor. But what I'm going to do to sort of, counterbalance the rather slow phrase there, is I'll play a slightly quicker phrase, 12 to 8 on the first string, 12 to 8 on the second string, back to the 12, down to the 10. So I'm outlining an A minor arpeggio. There it is. And that takes care of the A minor. Here's another little inflection or phrasing tool you can use that a lot of heavy metal rhythm guitar players would use this. It's surprising how few actually use this in solos. That is palm muting. It can add an air of mystery to it because you don't hear the full note ring. Right? It sounds like someone creeping around the corner. But when I play it like this, you hear what essentially is outlining an E minor arpeggio again. We got E, which I pick. Using alternate picking, I go down, up, down. Then I've got G, the third of the chord, down, up, down. F sharp, which is from the scale, down, up, down. And finally B, which is the fifth of the chord, down, up, down. So there's an E minor arpeggio. I just decided to add an F sharp in there for a little bit of balance. And palm muting, in case you're not aware, is just laying the edge of your hand, or what I call the karate chop of your hand, right where the strings and the bridge meet, just enough that you still hear the tone of the note, the pitch of the note, but it's not allowed to sustain. If you go too far onto the string, it just sounds like someone knocking at the door. If you go too far back, you won't hear any mute at all. It'll just sound like you're playing the note normal. So it might take a bit to find your position there, but once you do, it'll be dialed in and you'll be good for life. Cool. From there, to get into the A minor section, I decided to use sixth. The interval is of a sixth. So what I'm doing is I'm sort of anticipating the A minor by playing C and sliding D to E. The reason why I call it anticipating is in the A minor chord, which is about to happen any second now, it will contain a C and an E. So I'm sort of foreshadowing the coming A minor. When the A minor does drop, I include C on the second string. This is something you would hear sort of almost more of an old school R&B technique than it is for rock solos or whatnot, but it does add a lot of depth to it, and adds a cool sound, which again can add life to your solos. From there, I follow suit. I move the E, which I had on the fourth string, up to G, which is the minor seventh of A minor. So I'm trying to expand the tonality of the chord a little bit here. And then when I get to the G, also at the 17th fret, but this time on the second string, you're going to hear E. So I'm doing that with a ring finger, pinky. And then I just try to add a little vibrato to almost give it a slide sort of sound again. It's back on an E minor chord, and it's just a very simple rake. Think of a rake as sort of like a sweep, except you're not actually articulating individual notes. They're really just muted, dead strings. And it gives a very percussive effect, one that a lot of players tend to overdo, in my opinion, but if you do it here and there tastefully enough, like any other technique, right? If you do it tastefully enough, it adds a nice little shock to a certain note. So in this case, I use it to cap off that little lick there. So the majority of the lick itself, well, the entirety of the lick itself, is E minor pentatonic until I get to here, and that part occurs over an A minor chord. So I've got notes that suit A minor more than E minor there, but to cap off that E minor phrase, I rake into the first note. So I hold that note with my pinky, first string, 12th fret E. And what I'm doing is I'm using my other 3 fingers to just lightly dampen the string. So I'm not pressing at all. It's just enough to make it sound like I'm knocking at the door. Right? This trick I learned from Jeff Beck. He did this on, I can't remember what song, I think it was on Wired, where he would play a note and then he would chase the same note with a bend. So my version of that is... So what I'm doing there is I'm bending the 8th fret, 3rd string, which is an E flat. I'm bending it to E. Then I play E. Then I bend E. And then I play E. So I do that between the E flat and E. And then, because I'm over an E minor chord, I'm going to do it between F sharp bending to G. G being one of the chord tones. Like so. And to wrap up E minor, I'm going to play, actually this is more about leading into A minor, but I'm going to start this run using a little bit of the E minor blues scale and a little bit of the regular E minor scale, or the E Aeolian. And all I'm doing here is leading into the longer run with that little phrase there. So I've got second string, we're going to do 11, 12, 15, which is really just a fragment of the E blues scale. We got the B flat, which is the flat 5, the B, the D, and then this portion is really just a scale fragment from the E Aeolian mode, or just the E natural minor. Then, over the A minor chord, the final phrase is going to continue with this quicker picking lick here. And as far as the 30-second notes section of it, that's what you're going to do. This is over an A minor chord. I'm using A, which is the root, G, which is the 7th, E, which is the 5th of the chord, and then more chord tones. I've got C, B, and A, which is 17, 16, 14. Right, so we have, that's the first group of 8. Then I'm going to basically mimic that phrase from the string we're currently on to the next string using the same fingering. And I do like doing that. I like doubling up on certain notes here and there. I think it adds a neat little contour. Here's another neat little inflection or rhythmic concept that can add to your phrasing. This section is 30-second notes, and so is this one. But what I do is when I know I'm going to come to the end, I'm going to slow down. I'm going to kind of like grind my heels, and doing that involves playing groups of 6 instead of 8. So you can have, so you notice it's like, so you're going fast and then you kind of grind your way to a halt. This is one of my favorite aspects of Vinnie Moore's earlier playing. On a lot of his earlier albums he used to do that, and it's always stuck with me, so props to Vinnie on that one. So all I'm doing for the groups of 6 there is I'm playing, again, just a fragment of the E minor scale, but I'm starting on and highlighting A minor, the notes of the A minor chord, because that's the chord we're currently over. So you can play scale-based things, but I think it's smart or a wise idea to accentuate or start on and emphasize notes of the chord regardless of the scale you're on. So C, E, and A are all A minor chord tones. You're not going to really notice that, but I think it does leave a little bit of an impression, at least subliminally. At least I hope so. And then my final phrase. I incorporate two things we've mentioned earlier. A slide into a note from below, B, then I grab D on the 15th fret, second string, and then I'm going to, again, bend into B from 11. So the first one was a slide from 11 to 12. This one, and I'm going to let it kind of fly out like that. If you enjoy these sort of solo breakdowns, by all means check out this video right here and subscribe for more, as there is much more coming up.